Ain't no sunshine when she's gone. Only darkness every day. 'Cause ain't no sunshine when she gone. When she gone, gonna be anytime she goes away. And anytime she goes away. I know, I know, I know, I know. You are now tuned in to the Holly. You're now tuned into the Holly. You are now tuned in. You are now tuned in. You are now tuned in to the
Holly Favorite Podcast.
So, guys, we're going to talk about a few things today. Of course, we're going to talk a little bit about R. Kelly on the music side. We're going to talk about Aaron Foster and his words for regarding Tupac. We're going to talk about just some unpopular opinions. We're going to discuss just a few things, man. I always want to get everybody's insight on some social views and stuff like that as well. If we get enough feedback on the matter or any matter or whatever you would like to discuss, so we'll be doing that. So everybody's going to be on my Facebook Live. I would love for you to chime in. People on my IG Live, you can chime in as well. Get your topics. I can read off the comments, but I would not be able to obviously pull you in live because I can actually pull the audio from my Facebook Live because I have it plugged into my recording equipment. So that's all it really is, man. I just want to get everybody's insight on things. I want to be able to just to try to get more people to be a little more insightful with the things that we talk about on the platform. I always want to make sure that people are getting a say so. Sometimes I miss some of the comments. What's up, everybody tuning in on Instagram? Sometimes I miss some of the comments, and I really wish I catch some of them sometimes because I go back and look at things in the aftermath, and I missed some good things I could have spun off and talked about. But we're here now. It is Tuesday the 15th. Tuesday the 15th. This is episode number 17. This is the Highly Flavored Podcast. I'm your host, Eddie Royal, guys. And as I was just mentioning before, briefly, we are going to talk about R. Kelly's music. We're gonna talk about Aaron Foster speaking on Tupac. We're going to talk about unpopular opinions. We're going to talk about excessive or over excessive use of feminism and how that affects women and then women in the black culture. I want to talk about that. We're going to talk about Trump and McDonald's. We're going to talk some of the laws of the land as far as America goes, some of the sick laws or things we would look at and consider to be kind of sick. We're going to talk about some of those things. So we're going to get into all of those things without any kickback, I guess. So just quick rundown on music and the landscape of music. The end of 2018, there were a few projects that dropped, but music kind of slowed down. The first quarter, things started picking back up. So music and normally when I talk about music, I am talking about majority hip hop and R&B because that is the lanes I go to first for like first listen and things of that nature. Um, A Boogie had the number one album of the previous week, so big ups to him for that, and it did better than his last project as far as first week sales. So streaming is king. He's doing something right there, and I commend him for that. Keep doing your thing. And just continuing on the whole music slew, the R. Kelly topic has been a big thing since the beginning of the year, since episodes 1 and 2 were released on Lifetime, and there are now a lot of artists coming forward who have done songs with R. Kelly, or who have songs written by R. Kelly, are now saying that they are pulling those songs from their catalog on streaming platforms, on just well, we say on streaming platforms because you can't remove from hard copies purchased. So they're removing them from all of their streaming platforms. A lot of them will no longer perform the songs from this day moving forward. Unlike Omarion, who said after their B2K reunion tour that he will no longer perform the songs afterwards, which is kind of crazy. Even though I know R. Kelly had his hand on a lot of their music, and I feel like the best thing to possibly do is just don't do them at all. If you're really trying to be part of this movement. But I do like you understand both sides. You understand the business, and then you understand the social side of people not wanting him to, or suggesting that he just shouldn't perform the songs at all. But a lot of people are pulling their songs. Celine Dion being one of like the big names who are pulling their songs from streaming platforms. Like I guess as fast as she can possibly get them removed from her catalog. Um, and I just commend a lot of people for that, for being bold enough to say like some of these songs were some of these other artists probably top selling songs, maybe of their entire catalog, if not close to it. So for them to be bold enough to pull these songs from their catalog, to no longer perform these songs when they're out on tours or whatever the case may be, I commend them highly for that, because they're taking a financial hit for a moral and social gain, and that's what's up. Like I'm here for things like that, of that nature. So you can't really say anything too bad about that. But at the same time, R. Kelly's spot is saying he's really unbothered by people pulling their music or pulling the songs that they did and collaborating on together. He's more he's more in the mind state because he's trying to sue Lifetime. So his mind is on that case. His mind is in that in that space of trying to sue them for, I have no idea what all of the claims are, but he's just trying to sue Lifetime for that docuseries. So of course we'll be sitting around, we'll see all of the outcome of that situation as it comes through, and we'll just be here to partake and have our suggestions on it later down the line, and figure out the who's and whys then, as far as those things go. So let's speak briefly on, or not briefly, let's just speak on Arian Foster saying that Tupac really wasn't that deep. His opinion. Um, I always like to have these types of conversations with people who are from that time frame of music, because sometimes some of us just sound like a dinosaur, in the sense of they just don't want to move forward into the new time of listening to the music, and they just knock it before even really hearing it, or they can't fuck with it, whatever the case, whatever verbiage they use. That's one of the things. Music is ever evolving, and sometimes you do get stuck in his pocket, and I always fear that at some point I'm going to be stuck in his pocket, and I'm going to say to my kids, nah, this is good music. You don't know what good music is, and play something from 2002. Like it's one of those kind of things where, like, 2002 or 2010, or you know, and I'm trying to not be that person. I'm trying to not have that mentality. I'm always trying to be in a headspace of where I can always listen to the the era of music that we're in respects to the era of music where we came from. Um, but with Arian Foster saying that, it always brings forward another conversation of people starting to talk about other hip hop artists from that time, and asking, you know, the ones who are no longer here, would they have been able to translate that talent into the future? Could all of them have been Jay-Z, so to speak, as far as talent and ability. Um, and I always say I don't think so. I can't never really always pinpoint out who or whatever, but I always say I don't know if Tupac could have still been a quality rapper now. I don't know if Biggie could have still have been a quality rapper now. I don't know, if any other of the rappers that had passed away during that time could have been quality rappers now, because the ones majority of the ones who have stayed, who are still living and who have stayed in the music industry, they haven't been able to translate with the times. They haven't been able to keep up with things that were going on as far as the trends and things like that. They pretty much stayed in the pocket of this 90s era, and some of us are okay with that. But me, I'm not. I guess it's probably one of my first unpopular opinions that I don't think that every top lyrical artist from the 90s would have been able to survive in today's climate of music. That's just me. That's what I think. I think that streaming hurts a lot of their standing ground, because there isn't too much. In that time, you buy the album because you want to listen to the music, and the artists get their money, and it's like that doesn't mean, how many times in your lifetime have you purchased an album and you're like, man, I wasted my money. But it still counts as an album sale, regardless of what you do with that CD after that. You don't ever have to listen to it again. So that's the era we are in with streaming, because one of the things where it's like I can pretty much, I paid my subscription fee and I can listen to this project, and if I don't like it, I never have to listen to it again. And I just keep it pushing. I listened, I didn't like it, I kept it moving. But I didn't give you, I didn't help you make, say you were making $7-8 a CD to yourself, depending on your deal, or $2 a CD, whatever the case may be, from 2 to 8. I didn't help you generate those funds because I felt like your project wasn't worth it. So I feel like that in that mindset is fair, as far as how we view streaming, or how I view streaming. Um, but it's not for those artists in that time frame. Those artists they paved the way. So you respect the older generation of hip hop who paved the way for you to be here, because probably, the era before them were saying the same thing about that era, which it's considered to be the golden era in hip hop. And then we have, now, and for the, 8, 9, 10, or let's say for the 8 to 16-year-olds today, this is their golden era of hip hop. Like, this is where they come from. They're going to be able to look back and talk about the Kendricks and the Coles and the Drakes and the Meeks, and they're gonna be the ones to go back and look at stuff like that. We got, like, we got people coming up, the JIDs, and so there is still some lyrical talent around. Um and I can you can always potentially argue that some of these guys rap better than some of the guys from the 90s. Some of the guys from the early 2000s, or whatever the case may be. You can legitimately sit back and argue the case with some of these guys to whatever degree. Not to the point where someone has to agree with you, but it does go to a point where someone can understand why you would say such a thing. And that's the thing, is a lot of people don't want to have these conversations about hip hop, because you you get stuck in this pocket. We do the same thing with boxing. We do the same thing with martial arts and all those types of things. We do the same thing. So if we are never looking forward to growth, same thing with sports and basketball. If we're never looking for, we hold an artist or a player to this pocket of greatness, and we act like no one could ever outdo this. And I like to see people outdo. I like to see people break records. I like to see people better than people that came before them, because that means that, one, the human race is thriving and we are constantly improving upon improvements. Um, so for music, I feel like today we could possibly be in the best space in hip hop as and I mean I really do mean it. I mean I think that hip hop is at its best today. You know, and 5 years it might be at its best on that day 5 years from now. But by me saying that, I mean that we have more variations of styles, we have more variations of flows, we have more variations of lyricism, we have more variations of artistry, we have more variations of creativity. So in music, I don't think more is worse. You know, I didn't really I don't know. I just think that this era of hip hop, and I'm not saying that every rapper out now is better than every rapper from the '90s, and that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying, I just think that we have a better collective today in hip hop than any probably than in any other genre, because I think R&B back in the '90s was way better than R&B now, because it's kind of like the identity of R&B is getting lost and it's becoming more hip hop. Um, but you know, rock lives on and pop lives on. Those are the same type of genres, but then all of those are dipping into like the hip hop world to try to develop a new sound and grow their sound, because we're hip hop is the only sound that's ever aging, like not ever aging, that's ever transitioning into something new and creating something new. You know, a new sound, a new flow, auto tune this, don't auto tune that, high pitch this, whatever the new creative sound is, and people take that wave. Hip hop's doing it at its finest. We're the experiment for musical growth all the time, and that's been a constant. And so by Arian Foster saying what he said, and then there being like this outrage, you know, this social media outrage is kind of it's it's not surprising, because that's where we are in society, where everything that's said and done, especially by a celebrity, someone's going to scrutinize it, someone's going to feel some type of way, but they don't really. Sometimes they don't have valid claims. You know, their only claim is, "Oh, you know what you're talking about," or "You must not have lived through it," or you know, it's not relatable. Whatever the case may be, for somebody just to say an artist for them at that era just wasn't that deep, that to like they might mean it. You know, they it might not have been relatable content to them, or they might not just think they thought they were good. I look at it like this, and I always say, and like I said, and I maybe already said it because I'm going off on a tangent, that to try to take imagine taking an artist from the 90s when they were at their peak, at their greatest form, their greatest artistry, whatever their greatest project was, or whatever the case may be, and take it and place them today. Like, is that if that album just came out today, how great would that project, excuse me, how great would that project be? Some of them will not be so great. Some of them won't go over so well. Some of them will be will be saying they're trash. We hate the production. We hate this. Now, granted, the sound would be different as far as the quality of the music, because technology has gotten better, so we mix music better, we master music better, so the sound's a little more crisp and things like that. So that aside, I'm just talking about the lyrical content, the same exact flows, the same exact beats, the same exact videos, whatever all of those things. You know, take that same video they shot back in 1996, put it in HD 1080p. I don't care. Everything's the same. I'm just saying it. So if all of those things are presented to be the exact same, how many of those things will survive in today's climate of hip hop? How many of those things will survive in today's market? You know, how many Tupac albums would be classics if they were released today? How many Biggie albums? How many, like all of those things, if they were released today, how many of those things that we deem classics would still be classic if they came out today? The attention span on music is different. The uh the intricate levels of lyricism, I think, are far more advanced today than they were back then. I just think we have gotten way more clever with trying to put words together, because as artists we fight so hard to not say the same thing, but there's nothing else to say. Everything is really the same thing said in a different way over and over again. So imagine the 10th person trying to recreate that same saying again, we got to figure out a new way to be super creative with it, so we're at the peak of the creativeness today than we were back then, because they were the first to say it. So when they first said it, it was like, oh, that's crazy. Then the next person said it's like, it's still kind of crazy. Then it go down the line, then it's like, oh, such and such said that, that's not even crazy no more. Oh my God, that was too straightforward. Be more creative. And that's where we are now. Is we don't want too many people to be straightforward. They don't want it to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. They want you to hide the one, show them the two, hide the three, bring back the four. Like, it's one of those type of things where people are trying to get more into music. The ones who actually respect the lyricism aspect of hip hop. We want people to get more into. We have people that are getting more into the music and picking things apart and breaking down flows and things like that. Cool, what's up, boy? How you feeling, man? So hip hop has grown so far. We're so far advanced in sound. We're so far advanced in styles. We're so far advanced in the intricate levels of flows and all those things like that. So I don't like it. May be an unpopular opinion, but I don't think so. I think sometimes something like that is just the unspoken opinion or the feared upon opinion. I don't think it's too unpopular, because unpopular means too many people don't agree. Um, and I think a lot of people do agree. I do. I mean, I know a bunch of people that say Tupac, in their opinion, was ass. Same thing. I know about people that say the same thing about Biggie. So I've seen it. It's not a issue where I'm just like trying to make some stuff up, and it's like, yeah, it's an unpopular opinion. I think it's more just like people are scared to say it, because where we are in social media, the backlash is crazy. It's like, what you said? What? Oh my God! Twitter rant, retweet this, bash him, he's stupid, and he don't know what he's talking about. They don't know music, blah blah blah, and it's like, dang man. I don't know. I mean, if you say I'm clueless, tell me how I'm clueless. I'll read it along. I'll read it back to figure it out. You let me know how I'm clueless in this aspect. If you don't think that artists today aren't better, and I'm talking top tier artists. Don't give me a little pump as a reference to what you're saying. Give me a Cole, give me a Kendrick, give me a Drake, give me someone who you know could compete. If you took them out of this time and put them back in the '90s with their same exact talent, they might have been the greatest rapper of all time. That's what I'm saying. Like, you got to think, like, if you take a Tupac from that era and pull him out of that time and place him down right now with his exact same style, flow, same exact songs, music, and everything, you're telling me that we'll be looking at him as one of the greatest rappers of all time? I don't think that that's a thing. I don't think that is said to be true. I don't think that's real. I think that's absurd. That's like saying you can take one of the worst athletes of in basketball and bring them forward into this era and think they're going to compete. They won't be able to compete. But you can take one of the worst athletes of today's era of basketball, and I don't mean the worst like the 15th man or somebody in the G League. I mean like the fourth scoring option on a good team, and put them back in the 80s, they'll dominate. Put them back in the early 90s, they might dominate. Especially like those are the things that we're talking about. It's not the same. Let me see what you say. It's not even close. The product is no longer original. Look at the top tier they use it from. So it's not even close. The product is no longer original. Look at the top tier. They use a formula. Nothing will ever change with that. Look at sales this year. Um, Lyrically, artists sound. No, wait. Not see. You think they didn't have a formula back in the '90s as far as creating songs? Almost all of the songs were formulated the exact same way. I think we're more creative trying to make it different now. Back then it was a hook, a 16, a hook, a 16, a hook, and then the song is over, or whatever the case may be, or the verse in the 16. Like, everything was broken down the same. The beat patterns were, the same thing, because it was harder for them to produce those records because technology wasn't where it was. So it was harder to produce those tracks. Now we can get a beat from a producer and then go back and be like, yo, can you rearrange this for me? And they go back into Fruity Loops or Pro Tools or whatever they use to make the beat to rearrange it for you. So now you have intro go, then you come back with a little bridge and a hook and a bridge, and then you come back with a hook, and then you got a 6 here and an 8 here. Like we have more. There are more people that are creative here. We have 2 minute songs that are selling, but like crazy, probably better than almost any singles have sold back in the '90s, and it's ridiculous. So so to say that the product is not even close, I think we put out better products now. I think the products sound better because of technology and the advancements that we have, and we have better ears. We have a better. We have gotten better sonically over time. I don't think that saying that it's not even a close product. I think that's just someone being stuck in an era, in a time where they don't want to they don't want to grow. People like Bruce Lee would be the greatest fighter ever of all time, and then you see here and you watch and you see some of these kids do amazing things, and we don't give them any credit. And I'm like, yo, this kid's nice. I don't know. I don't know if Bruce Lee would have beat this kid, and then people look at you like this is blasphemy. Those are the type of things I always want to try to avoid. Um, Even with my own children, I'm like, you have to look at the bigger picture. You have to look at down the line. No one ever thought any like. There's still an argument today that LeBron James is better than Michael Jordan, but people of that time are always going to argue that Michael Jordan is the greatest basketball player of all time, and there will never be anybody that ever surpass him. I don't want that in my life. I want to see somebody be better than Jordan. I want to see somebody in the future be better than LeBron, and whoever that person is. I want to see somebody be better than them before I pass in my life. Those are things I want to see. Those are great human accomplishments. Why don't we want that? Why do we knock what we have now as growth and development? I do think production has a lot to do with music today. I think some of the best music, original music, obviously was made earlier time because a lot of things are sample based now, and we're just recreating sound around an old sound. So I do think production of that time was great. I think production of this time now is faster, but it still sounds good. I think it's more creative. I think production of this time and now is more creative, especially if they're not using samples. If they're not using samples, I think that the producers of today are better only because there's nothing else to take the sound from if it's not a sample. So if you created a new sound today, you have to be really, really good. We look at Kanye as one of the greatest producers of today, but he's highly sample based. Everything's something new from something old. You know, I want to hear new sound. I don't want to hear a project being held up because they couldn't get samples cleared. That's trash. We didn't have a lot of that in the early '90s, from my understanding. But then again, we didn't have social media to just tell us all the information on why your favorite artist's album held up, because there probably was some of the similar things back in that time. So it's the same people and the same formula. These guys had the same drum kick. Yeah, but GOAT isn't based on skill. It's based on impact. That's not true. It's a combination of things. Being the GOAT of something is a combination of things. A combination of, if you're whatever craft you're in, it's a combination of that skill and that impact. So you think if LeBron didn't have any impact on the league, but his numbers were exactly the same, no impact, no global impact or nothing, but his numbers were the same amount of championships and everything like that, we won't look back and be like, yo, LeBron was great on the low. We never really gave him enough credit because he wasn't out. He wasn't the face of anything, but we didn't give him enough credit. But LeBron was great. Look at his numbers. That has a lot to do. A lot to do with everything. Eminem sold the most last year. Okay. What does that mean, though? Eminem has one of the largest fan base, and I'm a huge Eminem fan, so I can't knock his talent. He's highly talented, but he also has one of the largest cultivated fan bases of almost all time. So he's going to sell, and he dropped two full length projects. What do you think his numbers are going to look like? Everyone else dropped one. No one else. If anybody else dropped two, it was somebody else of the streaming era. Eminem is not of the streaming era. He's of the buy me era. So his fan base is a little different. That doesn't change. That doesn't validate your argument of me thinking that today's era of music is better, because he's still rapping today. I don't count him. I don't count Jay-Z, because they still have top tier talent. They're still doing it today. They grew into the time. And then the crazy thing about that is a lot of people were knocking Eminem for sounding like the old Eminem. He didn't grow. He didn't do this. He still rap like this. He still say this. He doesn't have anything to rap about. Blah blah blah. But he's just showing you his rapping ability. Sometimes you might not have nothing to rap about. Do you want to hear track beyond track of how much money Eminem has? You want him to keep telling you that? We already know you rich. What do you want? What else do you want from Eminem besides showcasing your talent over and over again? Do you still got it? Can you still rap? What type of content are you looking for from somebody like that? Because if he does it, then he's just a white guy showing off because he's rich. We want to hear that from Jay-Z because he always presented something different. Like he always telling the story. He's the blueprint, quote unquote, to us trying to make it out of the hood. Eminem is not that for us. Eminem was a great rapper. Hov was a great life lesson. It's different things. But they're still alive and producing today. I'm talking about people who are. Name me another the other rappers from that era who are still hard and producing today at that level. Jada Kidd still rap. He never ever did it. Styles never ever did it on that level. And they're top rapper. They're top tier talent as far as their craft goes. But we're talking about your craft plus sales, your craft plus marketability, your craft plus likability. All of those things factor in. We can't just act like those things don't matter because we want to bash the kids of today. Because I have my gripes about the music of today as well. I do. I have my own gripes. I do think every rapper should know how to rap. I do think that. 100%. But a lot of them don't. But that doesn't mean anything to younger people who are younger than me. It doesn't mean anything. You know? I have no idea what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about at all. Okay, so I don't have any idea what I'm talking about as far as music goes. I have no idea what I'm talking about saying that I feel, my opinion, that music today, hip hop is in a good place as far as the cultivation of talent we have and the creativity we have today. So my opinion, I don't have anything else. I don't understand my own opinion. Because Eminem knows the formula, samples and DJs. What does it have to do with anything? We're in an era. We are in an era of music where your social media following is what's going to get you a record deal. And if you have enough followers, that's going to most of the time generate into enough streams if you can stay in front of their face long enough to keep their attention. So Eminem having a following that he's always had that shifted over to social media, do you think that he wasn't going to be able to outsell most of the rappers or all of the rappers last year? If he would have only dropped just the one project, he wouldn't have outsold all of the rappers last year. But he dropped two. Okay, your son is 14 and he don't listen to that. That's cool. That's what's up. You don't have to listen to what everybody's listening to. Everybody doesn't like the same thing. I know teenagers that don't listen to whatever we call the mumble rappers today. They say they don't have no talent, blah blah blah, and they corny. And they listen to the rappers of today. I also know teenagers who listen to the rappers of today who tried to go back and listen to the rap of the 90s and were like, nah, that's to me that it's boring. I don't like it. The flow is this, or the flow is too slow, or the flow isn't intricate enough. So for us to think that what was a crazy flow back in the 90s today is basic. That's what I'm saying. We've developed in our craft so much beyond. They didn't have a lot of these flows back then. Far and few people could pull off these type of things back then. Now, maybe for someone older, I don't know how old you are. I know how old I am. A lot of those things are more relatable because I lived through a lot of those things that they talked about. I saw some of those things with my own eyes, so I can agree and it's relatable. And now I can't relate to half the stuff that they're talking about because I don't do pills. I don't drink lean. All that those things don't relate to me. So, you know, when you when you look at a when you're comparing eras of anything, and I'm just trying to keep it in music, when you're comparing the era of something, you have to always try to say like why why is it better? Why is it better? Why did my camera go off? Why is it better? I don't know. You know, it's not the it's not the like you got to create a checklist. You know, you got to create a checklist. Let me see. There's a huge difference. I did radios in the '90s. Before you could buy slots on radio and TV. That's not okay. Wherever you were, that's how that station was ran. But payola has always been a thing. Payola has always been a thing. You would like to think that y'all pick music based on what you liked, but that's not true. Even today on the radio, you're not, it's the same thing. You have people that's like, we don't do payolas and the third, but you're giving the top, you're giving the top 40 list. You can't go, you can't go off and play, you know, your hottest local artists on the radio. You can't just go off and play them on your own accord because you want to and you like them. You don't see a lot of DJs doing that. You don't see a lot of DJs today uh, breaking artists because it's so easy for artists to get their music out. They're trying to find a way to make it a payola type of thing. You know, it's a you look at it now and you listen to the stories about you listen to the stories about the Hot 97 and all that stuff and old radio stations and how they were trying to be like the curators of the sound and control the music as far as what people listen to and things like that. And I still like just me growing up in the 90s, you know, I remember listening to the radio, so I'm not oblivious to what I'm hearing. It was the same. The cycle's the same. They play the same 40 songs in a shuffled random loop because that's what's popular. That's what's trending. This is what the labels cut a check for. Whatever the case may be, it was the same in the 90s. It's the same now. Radio. We're talking broadcast, terrestrial radio hasn't changed at all. Radio itself, that machine is the same machine, which is why streaming platforms are able to come in and dominate because it's different. I can go to an artist page that I like to hear on my own time. I don't have to listen to all these other artists sprinkled in between. I can listen to a bunch of artists who sound like the artists that I'm listening to now because I go to a Pandora or whatever the case may be and put this artist channel on and they'll give me artists that sound like and they'll give me artists that they worked with and things like that, so I get a more curated playlist. But radio is still the same top 40, the same songs in a cycle over and over again. So there's no way you can tell me that you guys were picking and choosing what you wanted to play and that was the thing. No, it wasn't. They gave you a list of things and you picked off the list of things. I don't care what you're saying about what you did where you were. I don't believe it. I don't believe it because I listen to the radio. The popular radio. I might not listen to like whatever unpopular channel is or whatever case. I listen to the popular radio stations here in Philadelphia, where I grew up in this area. And I have the same argument with you as far as saying that something is or isn't hip hop. I am a believer of thinking that we should subgenre some things. Um, that's important to me. I think that hip hop is the top of the umbrella, the top of the pyramid, and everything else falls down underneath of that. And we need to figure out, what we're going to call things. That's the only thing I could probably agree with. But radio was the same way radio is now. The internet didn't exist like that back then. It wasn't dominating. Streaming came over and took over. Because if radio was still good, if radio was still the thing, it wouldn't have been over dominated by something like streaming. It wouldn't have been a dominated market. It wouldn't have been taken over. Like radio's dying in a sense. You know, talk radio is dying in a sense. Podcasting is becoming a thing, which is kind of the same thing in essence. But all of those things, it's the same. You know, it's in some markets still goes on, allowing DJs to play what they want. Houston plays Houston, ATL play. Yeah, no, that's a thing. But that's a thing. That's a thing almost everywhere. Like Philly play more Philly artists, but there aren't a lot. We don't show a lot of artists a lot of love. Atlanta shows their homegrown a lot of love, but they're still top. You gotta think like top 40 is one thing, and then whatever's popular in your area is another thing. We don't have anything popular in our area. Meek Mill is the biggest artist out of our in our area in Philly, and guess what? Meek Mill's in the top 40. He's played and he's going to get plastered over the radio over and over. So you're not saying really saying anything different. Flex don't play whatever he want. Flex because he got a freestyle show, he get to play whatever he want. He got one platform where he goes off and plays a couple up and coming artists and things like that, but he still plays top 40. And Flex is 30 years in, and his platform isn't the typical radio show where he's just sitting around pressing buttons. His platform was built on him trying to get something from up and coming or unsigned acts. So that's one platform. You name Flex out of all people. Like we don't know what Flex do. Name 1,000 other Flexes. Name one of them at every major radio station. If you're in Philly, name one of those at Power 99. Cosmic Kev? He was doing it, but then him and Jada Kiss got into it because Jada said he was bullshit. You're just making money off these kids for paying you to come up here to spit freestyles on your radio show. They're paying you, and then you're not. You can make your own record. He could have did a lot. Jada got in his ass about that. No homo. Do he still play top 40? See, playing what you want. See, this is what I mean. Playing what you want is something that means something different to me. Because if you have this curated playlist of these are the top 40s and every now and then you sprinkle in something, it's one thing. But again, you're not naming me one DJ at every major platform that's doing it. You're naming me one DJ. Atlanta, we know how Atlanta get down. If you're in hip hop, you know how Atlanta gets down. You know how Houston gets down. You know how some place in the West Coast gets down. New York don't get down like that. Philly don't really get down like that. A lot of major markets where some of the top tier rappers are supposed to be coming from. I'm talking about talent wise, lyrical and wordplay and all that. Talent wise, they don't get down like that. They're still playing the shit that we consider to be bullshit. So just because Flex let niggas come up there and freestyle, and one DJ in Atlanta plays whatever he wants periodically, doesn't mean that radio isn't shitty. Radio shit. That doesn't change. That didn't change anything. This is why that's why radio's dead. That's why streaming is winning. That's why album sales don't really mean anything anymore, because people are barely making physical copies of anything because streaming is there. I pay $10, I pay $14 or $21, whatever my platform cost is, and I get to listen to whatever I want 1,000 times over and over again. So financially, I think a lot of the artists are losing because they could have been making a lot more physical copies was still a thing, but that's neither here nor there. That's gone now. It's over. Streaming's here and it's here to stay. And whatever is to come of that, it's going to come of that. But that's music that's music in a nutshell. It's nothing really. It's not really too much we can really say. We're going to run around in circles because I feel like Windsor, I feel like your opinion is based in a time capsule. I don't feel like you're being genuine in your ideas or in your groove. I feel like you're more just stuck. You're one of the people who was like, my golden era will always be protected. I grew up in the same era with the same rappers of the same. Unless you're 65, if you're late 20s to late 30s, early 40s, we grew up in the same era. We lived through the same golden era of hip hop. And I personally think that today we are in a great place in hip hop as far as the cultivation of talent that we have. Everyone's not good. I would never compare Little Pump to Tupac, but we do have some great lyricists. We do have some great talents. We have more creative people. We have more wordplay. We have more lyrical ability only because we had to figure out ways to do it different than the 99 people that came before us, or we would have been considered corny because we're just copying someone else, or we're just doing it like this person did in 1996 and 99 and 2002. So you think that changing how people, developing a craft and changing it and building upon that is a bad thing? You're stuck. Just my opinion. You can't be stuck. You gotta grow past that. Same thing with anything. All things have changed. All things have grown into something else. Either it became something worse, which I don't think hip hop did, or became or become something better, which I do think hip hop did, as far as the cultivation of talent. There are more producers, there are more ways to make money, there are more things to do musically now than it was back then. I'm not a big fan of samples, but if someone can recreate something and make it sound different, because sometimes I miss the sample completely, then go back and I'm like, oh snaps, that was the sample. That's crazy. So sometimes some of these producers today are great, but and all that deriving from Arian Foster saying that Tupac wasn't that deep, in his opinion. Everyone's entitled to it. It's just one of those things. So let's uh let's move on. Let's talk about feminism a bit. I always want to talk about that. My camera is on the fritz. This footage is going to be crazy. So the excessive, what I'm calling the over excessive use of feminism, mainly like with black women. I'm looking, I've had conversations over the week. I was on a friend of mine's post on Facebook, and they were talking about, someone dropped a statistic, and it was speaking on. Of course, everything has been like coming off the backs of this R. Kelly situation, and they were saying like 60% of black women are raped young in homes or something like that. So whatever the statistic was, it was about 60% of black women that have reported the crime, whatever case may be. And it was some other things in it that made this statistic a little specific, so it would spike the number a bit. But on that post, a few guys that I would deem fairly intelligent or highly intelligent just asked a simple question of, uh, one, it was something about y'all always something something because it's black women was in the post, and we were like, okay, who's y'all? We don't really like that statement as much because you're grouping everyone into something that we might not be a part of. But then we said, and where are you getting the numbers from? Because we actually like to speak on factual things, um, just so we can have better context. And if you want to debate or talk or discuss something, you would like to use that on the baseline of facts. So the young lady goes on and she says something, and she says, she starts making it about the fact that we question it is because the passage or the statement, excuse me, came from a black woman, and we were like, mm, no, I just think we asked the question because we want to know where the source of the information was coming from, so we can go and see how valid it is and have a better discussion to understand that high statistic. Because to me, any percentage is too high. Any percentage of rape is too high. 0.000001% is too high. I don't care what the number is. I just wanted to know where the source was. And we were talking, and further down the line, and it continued to be, it's because she's black and this ain't the third and all that stuff. And I'm like, that's not the case. And then it started being, a lot of shots being thrown as black men. You're getting shots thrown at you as men. And it's like, okay, we're trying to have an intelligent conversation with a black woman, and her main thing is trying to defend a black woman who was never being attacked in the first place. That's what I mean by the like over excessive feminism, because just to be coming to someone's defense who isn't in need of being, and one, if the post was a shared post, so it's not like the young lady was even there to be saying anything in response to the questions we were asking. We were actually just trying to figure out from the person who reposted it, which was a man, one of our friends, and we were just asking where the information came from. um but I think it's been a problem when people don't know how to use that type of power or that rally of feminism. I'm all for like equal rights and things like that. And feminism is like, the definition is like advocating for equal rights of women. That's it. Equal rights across the board for men and women, but obviously for women, because men were always afforded more rights since history. Okay, cool. So if that's the baseline of feminism, when you start to compile other things on top of it, like feminism, then you put black women on top of that, and it starts to become a more and more of a trickier slope, because there are more and more layers of issues there. You have one because they're black, and the history of black people in general. Then you have the history of the black woman in general. Then you have the history of the black single woman. Like, so there's a lot of things compiled on top of that, and then at the bottom of that long list of bullshit, you throw in feminism. Bam, right there, and you're like, shit. How can you combat that when the person that seems to be coming at you from the other side is coming from such a bitter place? And I always try to figure out, I can never be in the shoes, so to speak, when they're telling me things about what it takes to be a woman and things like that. you know I draw the line at parenting. When they talk, like, when you're talking feminism, you get to a certain point and you go into parenting. That's where I draw my line at, because men and women could be just as good or as bad parents. So those are my lines drawn. But all other things, the things that got to do with like rape culture and equal opportunity for wages in the workspace and things like that. I see it. I've seen it. I understand those types of things. And then those same women turn around and say, "Well, where are the men at who are going to take care of these women? Where are the men at who's going to pay these bills and let their women go out and get their nails done and buy $1,000 handbags? Where are the men are going to do this?" So it's like, what do you want? What do you really want? Do you want to be equal across the board, or do you want to, or you just want the, I just want the right to be equal, but I don't really want equal responsibility as far as being a productive member of society. I just want the right to be. You're trying to tell me I can't be, and that's crazy. I'm telling you that I can be. And I'm like, okay, so what now? Like, what now? Where do we go from here as a society? What do we do now as a society when you have women who actually fight against the things that they're trying to fight for? It's kind of backwards to me sometimes, you know? And you see it, it's out in the open. Of course, it's not all women. It's not 100% of the women who act this way. There are some women who hate the idea of feminism, and not for the fact that they want the equal, they don't want equal rights. They just hate how some women go about trying to be feminists. So you go and you say these things and you argue the point, and it's always, when a race card is thrown in, it's always a difficult thing to attack, because now it's like, yeah, you do know the struggles, you do know what black women have been through and all these other things like that. And I'm like, but at the same time, shut the fuck up. That's how I be feeling sometimes. I'm like that if that becomes your only defense and there's no other facts on the table, I'm like, come on, black men have been through things as well. Black men still go through things as well, just as well as black women. We all go through things in life, and the last thing we need to be doing is attacking each other. As far as the black culture goes, the race, you know. But that's what was happening, and that's what happened on that post a little bit. We started being attacked, and called different types of names, and we were like, the mindset of children, or the mindset of niggas and all this other stuff. And you're like, why does it have to be that? And the mindset, some you get on another post, and like we talking about like money and how the economy is screwed up and this and the third, and we try to figure out a way to balance a home, and people be like, black women come on and be like, see, that's the mentality of broke niggas and little boys, and we're like, what? We're just having a intelligent discussion about um finances and trying to improve your household financially, but we just gotta be broke because we're trying to figure out balance. Then we gotta be broke niggas because we're trying to figure out balance and we're black. So you know, I personally don't know of like a male movement like feminism. America. I mean, I guess if you wanted to say that it is what it is, just what the whole world has always been, a male dominated society as far as the laws of the land and things like that. Okay, we can say that. But I mean, as far as like how we just gonna group up, we're gonna hashtag something, we're gonna go out here, we're gonna push for these, uh, for you to not have equal rights. We just gonna combat that. Or I don't know. I don't know of these things, and it's okay for some of these things to exist. I just want some of these things to exist in the space where things are going about different as far as their actions. So many people, so many people like to blame everything else around them in their society, and sometimes you have to take the blame on your own as a society. Like we were talking, about culture. We were talking about like a black corner store, and if there was a black store, and blah blah blah. And I said, well, what if the black store is 2 blocks away, and the Spanish store is 2 blocks away, same distance, so we're cool there. You go to one store, you go to the Spanish store and they have something that you want, and you're like, let me go try the black store first. You go to the black store and they have it there, but it's a little more expensive. Do you still just buy from the black store because you're trying to support? Like, hey, so you got to support your community and your black people, so buy it here because it costs, even though it costs more, it's all good. Or do you go back to the Spanish store where it's the same exact product for cheaper because you're being financially responsible? So those are the arguments that I have with people on social media all the time about stop trying to be so pro something all the time. Sometimes you can just be right. I'm like, black people always want discounts. All people always want discounts. That's a thing. Like everybody likes to save money. So if I walk into a black store and be like, yo, what's up? Let me get a discount. They're like, no, all right, we do the same thing in the price. So, yo, Poppy, what's up? Man, oh my God, why is these so high? Yo, take some off of this. We do the same thing. Doesn't matter. They walk into the Chinese store, scream at the Chinese store all the time, and be like, your prices went up 14 times in the past 6 weeks. It was $325 in October, and now come January, it's $575. Like, what's up, man? Take it back to the old price. We want discounts everywhere we go. It's not a black thing. It's not a black thing going to a black store. It's a people thing, a society thing. All colors want discounts. It's no difference, man. And I hate that. And then I hate that a lot of that stuff comes from the mouths of other black people. So it's like the self hate. And when you tell them that, or you bring them like, yo, I sense a lot of self hate. Just something you want to talk about, and then they snap on you. They want to cuss you out, call you all type of dumb, dirty niggas, and all types of shit like that. You're like, I think I'm fairly clean. I'm not dumb, and like, what do you? So all of those things just kind of trickle down, and they're attacking you because they don't really know what else to say. They're not used to people challenging their words, or their followers or their fan base are so used to just allowing them to say the things that they want to say on social media, and no one is challenging them. I always like challenge people. Like I get on social media some days just to be a fucking idiot and just challenge people's vocabulary and their grammar. Your phone has auto text and you spelled 6 words wrong in your one paragraph. Something's wrong there. Things like that. Like now your phone's becoming dumb because your phone duplicates a pattern, a habit, or they be like, maybe that's really a word because you keep typing it that way and they keep it, you know? But when you first typed it, they try to fix it for you. Things of that nature. Or just using the wrong words there, and all this other stuff. Or just doing math wrong, a simple thing. I saw someone post the other day, they said that uh if the disinfectant cleans 99.9% of the germs, well, where's the other 1%? And I was like, sad face, 0.1%, because that's how much is left. So I challenge people all the time, whether it's funny or not. Sometimes it's still mind opening. Think about it. I'm not trying to be a dickhead all the time. Sometimes I really be sad, like this is sad. Let me help her, or let me help him. All the time. Sometimes I'm just going in for shits and giggles because sometimes it's fun to see, because you see those same people on social media and they're going around and talking about people and dirty this and that and the third, and they kids ugly and that girl dumb, sharing memes of this person fat and blah. All these things are wrong, and then you go out or you want to fight, you want to beef for people, all the other things you're saying, and I'm just looking at all the grammatical errors. Like you have way bigger issues on your hand than that. You might want to read a little bit more. We're in the era of like we got hands on everything. You can read books on your phone now, so you don't have to put your phone down. It's okay. You can read a book. There's nothing wrong with any of that. I, I don't know. I like I don't want to dwell on it too long, mainly because um not getting a lot of feedback, and you never know what that means. You never know if that means you're just like upsetting people by talking about feminism, or they agree with you and they're not responding, or they disagree but they don't know how to say anything to you, and to debate anything that you've said so far. So it's just one of those things, man. Um, I just wanted to speak on something real quick because I talked about it on another podcast that I'm a part of, Empire We Trust. And they were talking about the R. Kelly thing, and we were talking about age of consent, and I was like, that's one of the sick things that we have in laws of the land is the age of sexual consent in some places is 16, and I was like, I think that's something that needs to be revisited by our government. Granted, they're shut down now, and we're fighting over a Mexican wall. Meanwhile, we have you know sexual age of consent at 16. We have um what is it called, consent. We have parental consent to marry off your child at 14 in some states. You can be 14 and your parent can say, yeah, it's okay for you to go and get married, and you go and get married at 14. So these are some of the sick laws of the land that are endangering our young women, because a lot of the laws don't even apply to men or boys. It's like 18 for men, but for girls it can be 14 here. It could be 16 for sexual consent here. So you think that, like, it's weird in a sense, because we always fight. Um, Sometimes you fight over like your logic. Sometimes you fight over your morals and things like that. And I'm not talking about inner. I'm just talking about like just in general other people, where you can, you're 30, and also there are some things set in place for some places. It's called. I wrote it down because I didn't want to forget. I thought it was important. It's called a close age exemption. So that means is like, even if there's a age of sexual consent for at 16, you can't be over 19, or you can't be over 20 years old. You have to be 20 or younger. It's like one of those things, like they set stipulations in place for that. So some places do have that in place as well. Um but at the same time, 16 is still sick. Like, you can just lie. Like, people have just, it's one of those situations. So you go and we're in this era where our laws of the land are sick in itself, and then again, so morally you're like, man, that girl's 17, uh buddy was 26, 27, let's say, and he's having sex with this 17-year-old girl. They fall in love, she's still 17. They want to get married, she's still 17. And they're you know and they're in a state that is legal. A lot of men and women would just look at that like, yo, he's sick, he nasty. She's 10 years older than her. She's 17, you're 27. Like, come on, dude. Like, blah, blah, blah. Or you're 30, blah, blah, blah. Like, you know what I'm saying? But legally it's allowed. And he coming back, like, that's his rebuttal. Like, hey, listen, I fell in love with her, and it's legally allowed here in the state of whatever. So, what the fuck's the big deal? Get off my back. And it's like, dude, what do you mean? We're fighting our morals and we're arguing our morals down, and at the end of the day, the law wins. When you go to court, it's not always about your morals. So it's one of those things we need to look into, just as a society. For some things, I suggest that it should be 18 across the board, or 17 if graduated from high school, and 18 across the board, if not, it's one of those things where I am looking into. Yeah, I did talk about Pac and stuff already. That was earlier in the broadcast. We're about to actually wrap up in a little bit now, so we're pretty much at the end of the list of things to talk about. um so we have a I don't know, man. I just think a lot of things about our law needs to be revisited. I think a lot of things about the age of sexual consent really needs to be revisited. I say 18 minimum. Uh, Will from the Empire We Trust podcast said 21, and I think that's excessively too high. But I do understand where he was coming from, because a lot of these sexual assaults and a lot of these rapes and things like that are also within the area of alcohol being involved, whether they were out at a bar or getting some alcohol at a house party and they're underage and things like that. So I got where he was coming from in that too. I do understand it. I just don't agree. Um, but man, it's been a very insightful, personally insightful week for me, just looking into some of these things, and thinking about where we are in music as far as hip hop goes, thinking about where we are as a society as far as our laws to protect our women, and our men, but it just protection of the rape culture and things like that from our women has been the big uh topic of discussion since the beginning of the year, really. So, I don't really have much to say. I'm not going to drag this out any further. I just thank you guys for tuning in. Everyone who had something to say and responds back, your content is always welcome. Um, for all of the artists who are submitting their projects, again, no SoundCloud, no YouTube links. I need full albums or EPs. Send me a Spotify link, a Apple Music link, a title link, something of that ilk, but not SoundCloud. I want an original project, something you're trying to make money off, because I want to try to help you promote it. Once I listen to it, whether I like it or not, I'm going to talk about it if I get around to reviewing it, and then hopefully to get you some streams. So any independent artists, all of my contact info will always be in the description. Hollyflavor215 at gmail.com or eddieroyalmusic at gmail.com. You can always reach out if you have any questions about anything you want to, or you want to hear me talk about a certain topic. Same thing, or just DM me. I don't care if you guys DM me the link to your music project. You can send it to my personal page, or you can send it to the Hottie Flavor page. I don't care. You can just send it, but no SoundCloud. I've literally gotten an overwhelming amount of SoundCloud or people sending me singles on a streaming platform. I want projects, EP, album, Spotify, Apple, Deezer, Amazon Music, Tidal, all of those things. Just no SoundCloud, no YouTube links. I don't want to watch your music video. I want to listen to your project. I want to be able to pick a favorite song or say why I like the album. I want to be able to pick a worst song and say this is why I don't like the album. Whatever the case may be, I'm going to review it. So let's do that, guys. All right. Highly Flavored Podcast. This is episode number 17. Episode number 17. End of this podcast. I'm your host, Eddie Royal, guys. See ya.